Welcome to episode 8 of Tech Girl Talks. This is the VOD that you get to watch here on YouTube. These are recorded live on my Twitch channel, and I've got links to all of that below. This is also the final episode of season 1 of Tech Girl Talks, and if you didn't know, I started these on Twitch, started uploading the videos to YouTube, and since then it's actually turned into a podcast. It's available on all the places that you would listen to podcasts, and is a playlist original podcast. I'm really excited about that. I found out after the first 2 episodes we were like charting on one of the Apple Podcast charts, which is very exciting. Today, though, we're talking about something that I kind of didn't really want to talk about on Tech Girl Talks, but Blizzard kind of forced my hand. We are going to be discussing sexism in esports and gaming. It's a pretty serious topic, and it is one that I hope I've handled as best I could. I've got a very strong opinion about it, obviously, being a woman, but I try to be as fair and equal in this one as possible. But you get to enjoy the VOD now, so here you go. This is the 8th episode in season 1 of Tech Girl Talks. And I've actually put this specific discussion off for a long while. It's not a conversation that I have actually wanted to have. It was one I didn't want to have. And the truth is, it's because I'm personally tired of always being defined as a woman in esports first and foremost. I've been working in esports for about 4.5, 5 years. I think I've been full-time for 4 years. And while this might sound very egotistical, maybe a little bit arrogant, it's not intended that way. But I'd like to argue that I've accomplished a lot. More than most people in my region doing what I do, more than many globally. And the truth is, I believe I've accomplished that in spite of my gender and some of the things it throws up at me, not because of my gender. Now, don't get me wrong. I know opportunities came to me early because some places determined that I was the diversity hire. But I took those opportunities and I did the best I could with them. When I say I didn't want to speak about sexism in gaming and esports on Tech Girl Talks, it was more about wanting my work to speak for itself instead of harping on about this commentary, because it felt like, for me personally, despite shouting constantly about the horrific way women are treated in esports, it was for the most part ignored. And I know this because I shouted about it 4 or 5 years ago and pointed out some of the sexist behavior I'd had to deal with. And the very people that were sexist then are, one, still in the scene, and two, for many of them have continued to behave that way and be sexist. And I found that when I publicly spoke up about it, while people were sympathetic, while people were understanding, nothing really changed. If anything, I got labeled a bit of a bitch. I got labeled someone who could be difficult. And I've seen this happen with a lot of other women in esports who've called it out when they've mentioned it. No woman there's not all women, but a lot of us are aware that for many of us, our opportunities came because we were the diversity hire. We're not happy about that. It's not something that we're proud of. It's not something that we liked. We understood that that was the case, but we had to use that diversity hire opportunity to build ourselves. Because when we spoke up about this, what would end up happening is, if you publicly spoke up about it, the response would be, oh, but you got your job because of XYZ, you can't complain. And I think that was the reason why I didn't really want to discuss it on Tech Girl Talks. Activision Blizzard recently made news headlines after allegations of sexism and sexual harassment were leveled against the company by the state of California. I'm going to get TheGamer to break this down for you, because I think it's going to do a far better job than what I would have done explaining what exactly went down.
Activision Blizzard falls deeper into hot water after over 30 employees, past and present, provided their stories on Twitter about alleged abuse and sexism within the company. Stories, which span from 2 to 13 years, reflect the allegations within the lawsuit and beyond. From claims of normalizing sexism, peer pressure to take drugs, demotion of females due to pregnancy, and careers being stunted when employees spoke out. Employee of 3 years, Brad Krusko, after listing his negative experiences, went on to say, "Going to HR wasn't an option. You only went to HR if you wanted your story to immediately be shared throughout the entire studio. Activision has strongly denied allegations from the lawsuit, saying they are distorted and false. For detailed claims by employees, you can click the article link below. I'm Sissy T. Don't forget to check out TheGamer.com, the only source of gaming news, reviews, and interviews. Bye! Don't forget to click the article link below for more.
There you go. So that gives you a very quick overlook of what exactly went down with Blizzard, if you didn't know. That was pretty much the issue at hand. Now, following those allegations, like you heard from TheGamer, there were a couple of reactions that came from Activision Blizzard. So the first was that they kind of went on the attack and weren't too happy about it. They denied it. They said that the state of California was being unfair. They very quickly retracted that statement and said that they hope to do better. And a lot of the sort of upper management expressed distress at what had happened. And since then, there's been lots of words being sent around and public statements, and despite copies of actual text message conversations and emails, which clearly show who were involved in these conversations, who were part of the alleged sexism and sexual harassment, no one yet has fallen on their sword, so to speak. Obviously, staff at Blizzard hosted a mass walkout. The internet got involved. There were people announcing that they plan to boycott the company. They won't play Blizzard games anymore. Just completely shocked at the sexism allegations. When someone came out who had worked at Blizzard for a long time, people would attack them on social media being like, how could you be okay with this? You must have known. And I want to just be very clear that everything on Tech Girl Talks today is my opinion. And I have a very strong opinion about this. And I understand that my opinion isn't always the right answer to things. And I understand that my opinion is created by my own experiences. So I want to be very careful about where I go with this. I want to be as fair as possible. But the thing that shocked me by everyone's reaction, so this whole thing of we're never playing Blizzard games again, I'm deleting Overwatch, this entire thing. How did we not see this coming? I couldn't understand why people were shocked. And the reason I say that is because last year, Riot Games, League of Legends, Valorant developers, they attempted to settle a lawsuit aimed at them for pretty much very similar behavior. And Esports Talk actually briefly breaks this one down for us.
Early last month, Riot said that they would pay $10 million in exchange for the sexual harassment and gender discrimination that reportedly went on down there. A story covered by the Kotaku writer Cecilia De Anastasio in a very long article, a very good, interesting read, though, as she kind of cites some anecdotes from people that actually worked there, people saying things like locker room talk, bro culture, just general discrimination, people or women not advancing up the ranks and getting promotions simply because they are women despite being fully capable. And Riot, that's when Riot was like, okay, we will pay $10 million. But the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, the DFEH for short, I'm just going to say DFH because it's only 3 letters and it's easier, they say that Riot might be paying not only $10 million, but $400 million. And Riot is looking at them right now like this. What the fuck? Riot says that they worked to reach their agreement of $10 million, which they felt was fair, but the DFH is trying to disrupt that agreement in a legal filing that is filled with inaccuracies and false allegations. They then say that the filing downplays and ignores the efforts they've made, and they're looking forward to their court case. The case says that there is crotch grabbing, pictures of genitalia sent around the office, people being denied promotions. I shouldn't say people, women being denied promotions, loss of benefits, terminations, things like that. A bunch of things that were seemingly unwarranted. And while a jump from $10 million to $400 million is huge, you gotta remember, things like this can be very traumatic to people, and it's someone's livelihood. You never know what this could do to someone, so these things are taken very seriously.
I think the gist of what I wanted to show you was said there. So that was specifically with Riot Games. And interestingly enough, it wasn't just Riot Games, because last year, in July 2020, Ubisoft actually bled upper management when their own harassment allegations came to light. So France 24 actually reported on that at the time.
Some business news for you now. And French video game company Ubisoft has seen its share prices tumble as markets open this Monday. It's been dealing with what's been described as toxic staff behavior in the workplace. Catherine Bennett's with me on the set to talk a bit more about all of this. So, Catherine, what's happening there?
Well, the company announced this weekend that 3 of their top executives will be stepping down. That's their creative director, Serge Asquin, the CEO of their Canada office, Yanis Malin, and Cécile Cornet, the global head of HR, who reportedly covered up this huge climate of workplace bullying and harassment within the company. So this all started at the end of June when a number of women came forward on Twitter recounting their own experiences of sexual harassment, both at Ubisoft, in their Paris headquarters office, and in general across the gaming industry. And people, of course, began to name and shame. Now, the French newspaper, Libération, went on to then publish quite an in-depth investigation in the Paris-based company in their headquarters here in Paris, and brought to light around 20 different stories of sexual harassment, some dating back from many years ago. Now, one of the central figures in those harassment claims is Serge Asquin. He's this powerful was this powerful creative director in the Paris office, who was accused of not only turning a blind eye to, but actively encouraging this workplace environment of sexism and aggression even towards staff. Now, these revelations, of course, meant that Ubisoft had no choice, heads had to roll, and Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot said in a statement this weekend that the company had fallen short of its obligation to guarantee a safe and inclusive workplace environment for its employees. He said that it was unacceptable, that toxic behaviour is in direct contrast to the values on which he has never compromised and never will.
For me, part of Tech Girl Talks, and specifically season 1, was always about being open, attempting to provide 2 points of view, not necessarily pushing my opinion on you. And the issue is, with regards to this particular conversation and subject, I'm obviously very opinionated. I have regularly had to deal with sexism and borderline harassment doing my job in esports and gaming. I have watched other women deal with it for years, and I've spoken about this at length on other platforms for ages. I've got blog posts, I've done interviews, so I'm not going to just sit here and rehash all of my experiences, but I want to try and make you understand how my opinion has been formed, and it is because of these experiences. And one of the things that has stood out for me throughout all of this, is that there has been very few men in the room or conversation that have stood up for me and other women. And that was why when this Blizzard fiasco came out in the news and everyone was up in arms and every male gaming journalist had an opinion about it, or said, oh yeah, well, I mean, my favorite was always, oh, I saw this one coming. Okay, cool. So you knew it was happening, but now you think you're cool because you knew? Like, no, you're part of the problem. And I think this was the biggest thing. When the Blizzard thing happened, I was kind of like, are you even surprised? How can you be surprised? This has been going on forever. Look at Ubisoft, look at Riot. And this was something interesting for me, and I want to share a little anecdote of my own experience working on an esports broadcast. I was working a desk, and I had a freelance sound engineer who basically, the sound engineer mics you up. So that's quite an intimate procedure. There's a closeness involved. And then they're also in your ear. So they can talk directly to you, and they can make sure no one else can hear the conversation. And that was something that sound engineer obviously could get into my ear, and then obviously had to mic me up. This particular sound engineer was extremely inappropriate with me during a broadcast, and 2 of my co-casters who were on the desk with me, both of whom male, I turned my in-ears up very loud so that production is louder than everyone else. And it meant that they heard what was said to me. And at the time, I told them that I didn't want them to say anything because I was new to the broadcast. I didn't want to upset anyone. I said, I'll handle it. However, they ignored that completely and they went straight to our program manager, who ironically was at the time a Blizzard employee, by the way. And straight away, the program manager didn't even speak to me. The program manager went straight to the tournament organizer and had the sound engineer removed, and then sat me down and said, we've done this and we've removed the sound engineer. And I was in a state, I was like, I wasn't trying to cause a problem. And straight away, this individual said, no, your two co-casters came and spoke to me. This is unacceptable. And to be honest, I didn't want to report the incident because I didn't want to be labeled as difficult, because that happens for a lot of women when they call this out. It's, you're being difficult, this person was just being friendly, you're oversensitive, you're causing chaos, so you tend to just say nothing. And I was very lucky, I'm very grateful, because these three men, the program manager and these two casters who I worked with, they stood up and said something. And they didn't stand for it. They didn't sit quietly in the corner going, that's wrong, but I'm not going to say anything. They saw harassment happen and they put a stop to it. And I also know that they aren't the only ones. I am well aware of certain clients I've worked with and certain colleagues, certain friends, some of you that engage with my content, who have shut down sexist conversations that might involve me or other women. And I've been present when that's happened, or I've heard about it later on. However, the majority of the men in the room have said nothing. And not just the men, the women as well. They've either joined in on the conversation, or they've remained completely silent. And yes, they've remained silent, and after the conversation have either come to me or another woman and said, oh, this happened and this was said and this is what your colleague said. And they believe that by telling someone that the sexist behavior happened or the sexist comment was made about them, that exempts them from responsibility. But it doesn't, because the question needs to be, don't tell me what they said. Tell me why they were comfortable saying it around you. And I think that the problem is as women, and I think that this happens with men as well, is when you stand up and you call it out, there is this weird attitude in the gaming and esports space where it's like, you need to stop focusing on the negative. I've seen this narrative from women in this space. You need to stop focusing on this narrative. We need to talk about the positives about being a woman in gaming. Stop talking about the negative. Even though that negative is impacting women all the time and has to be spoken about. And at the same time, I've also seen everyone keep quiet, going, I don't want to get involved in drama. I don't want to be a troublemaker. When I talk about the silence that we see, this latest Blizzard issue actually highlighted this for me. I saw all these people online saying, well, I will just no longer play Blizzard games. I'm deleting all my Blizzard games. I'm not playing Blizzard games. I'm done with this company. This is how I'm going to stand up to stamp out sexism. But that doesn't work, because this is a corporation, and the majority of people in the corporation are not the gross men that were part of this behavior. It was a very small slice of a company full of people. So by you going online and feeling proud because you affected a share price or refusing to buy games or whatever else, that is not going to change the fact that Activision Blizzard will remain a very wealthy company. All it will do is likely affect the workers who work there, if it even has an effect. And the victims of sexism will deal with it as well. And I want to point something out that happened around the Riot issue last year. So you'll remember earlier on in this, we spoke about the fact that there was a lawsuit against Riot for pretty much exactly the same behavior as what's being called out at Blizzard. Interesting, because the reaction at the time was very much the same. This is disgusting. Riot is horrible. I don't like Riot. And then Valorant got released. And the very same people on the internet who were so loud about how gross Riot was, who were so loud making sure we all knew how terrible Riot was, were suddenly deleting those tweets and going on and on to the company, tweeting them nonstop, desperate to get hired as a content creator for Valorant, and desperately trying to get hired for hosting Valorant. And the same people who stood up and said, I don't like sexism, were suddenly quite happy to throw themselves at this developer now for Valorant. And those same people who are still trying to do that, whether it be for Valorant and Siege, are now people that are going online loudly declaring that they're deleting their Blizzard games. And I think that the problem that I have with all of this is that it's all meaningless, isn't it? When we're online making such a hullabaloo about Blizzard and Riot, within a few months they release a new game and we just carry on as normal. Nothing changes. You were cool and you were involved in the conversation by standing up, being very loud, but in 2 months' time you're suddenly playing this game, begging the developer to hire you. So what is my point? That's really the question here. And what exactly is the point of Tech All Talks today? I'm going to go straight in. Sexism and gaming in esports is rife. Whether we like it or not, it is there. Sometimes it is not crotch grabbing. Sometimes it is not full-on harassment. Sometimes it is underhanded and slight and we don't even realize it's happening. The way the industry behaves, talks, and how that affects decisions is unacceptable. But it is about time that we, as gamers, and those working in the industry, begin to hold actual people accountable. Corporates do have a responsibility, 100%. The lawsuit with Blizzard now and the state of California going after them, good. They're saying, you know what, this happened on your watch as a company. You need to fix this. But fixing this is not donating a bunch of money to some charities that help women, issuing a public apology and continuing on as normal and maybe paying some of the victims. It needs to be a conscious change. And that change does not come from a corporate. That change comes from the people at the corporate. It's interesting to me that we can cancel someone on Twitter, destroy their livelihood, block them out from the entire online conversation or opportunities when there is proof that they have partaken in, excuse my language, shitty behavior. I've seen it. Someone will call someone out online and it will turn into absolute chaos. That person will delete all their social media accounts. They will leave an industry and they will never work again. And yet, we do not do the same for the people in positions of power, the CEOs, the managers who are responsible for this. If you take a look at the Blizzard situation, there are emails and WhatsApps that are readily available online right now that have been released, that list the names of the people involved in this. Surely those people should have already tendered their resignation. It's publicly out there. Instead, those people have not tendered their resignation. Instead, they've defended the behavior. I've seen so many stories about how they've tried to swing this. And the problem is they've defended their behavior and the other people in the corporation have defended them. And this for me is the problem, because whether it's happening at Blizzard or whether it is happening at a LAN event in a small country like mine, South Africa, we need to change the way we behave. If you have proof, say something. I am not a fan of cancel culture because I think sometimes the full story is not available. So I think if you think someone is sexist, simply standing up and saying that and calling them out and creating a mob is not good, because you may be wrong, because sometimes we're wrong. I'm wrong a lot of the time. And I think that if you have actual proof, though, you need to say something. If you are in a conversation with someone and they make a sexist remark, call it out. If we want to remove sexism from esports and gaming, it actually starts with us. And when you hear someone from a brand or a position of power making a comment, do not sit silently. If you believe it is not it's not a comment that should be made, you need to say, I don't like what you're saying. That's probably not something you should say. But the problem is, maybe you're scared. You don't want to lose. Maybe it's a client, or maybe you don't want to lose money. Fair enough. But if you have actual proof and you can see that this is an actual sexist comment, say something. We have to be brave. That is what needs to happen. As a group, we have to be brave. And here's the thing. I've not been brave. When I started out, I called it out a lot. I dealt with the horrible things that were said, and then by me calling it out, the aggressiveness from the men involved, and I say aggressiveness, to this day, I still deal with their aggressiveness because they have not left, some of them have not left the industry. The nastiness, the weird axe to grind, they are not happy that I said something, and it is still there. Ironically, one of them has apologized, which I thought was extremely brave of them, and I appreciate that they apologized and said in a very earnest way that they realize now what they did was wrong. No one else involved in my personal incidents when I started my career has changed that, has ever apologized. If anything, that just made them angry that I said something. And since then, I have not been brave. There have been moments that I have said nothing. We're all guilty of it. It is tiring to be the only one fighting. I was tired of being labeled difficult and bitchy and being oversensitive, so I haven't been brave. I stopped. The issue is Blizzard, Riot, Ubisoft, they're corporates, they're big corporate machines. The behavior that's been reported on, that was done by people. And the reason those people did it is because no one said, hey, that's not okay. And if enough people say, hey, that is not okay, maybe someone will stop. Right now, I think no one is saying it. I know that I don't. I've said it. There's times where I just go, you know what? I've been down this road. I cannot fight for everyone anymore. I am so tired of always having to stand up and fight. I would like someone to stand up and fight for me. And like I said, I think that maybe we're all feeling that way. Maybe everyone is keeping quiet because of that. But maybe it's important now that we all decide to be brave. So I'm going to leave you with this. Sexism in gaming and esports is a very real problem. Sexism in the world right now is a very real problem. But if we want to get rid of it, it needs to start with us. Speak up, do not stay silent, and be brave. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed season 1 of Tech Girl Talks. Make sure you go check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, all of those places. The links are in the description. Also, I'd love it if you could hit the subscribe button on this YouTube channel because I'm constantly loading esports and gaming content for you. And if you enjoyed Tech Girl Talks, let me know in the comments because I'm considering doing a season 2 and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.